And welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. We're presented and brought to you by FanDuel, and we are going to be doing our Big Ten performance tiers for Week 11. Going to be talking through every single Big Ten team, how they played in Week 11, and where would we slot them in with our tiers. Let's go ahead and start with the Indiana Penn State matchup, where Indiana wins this game close at the end, 27-24 over Penn State. Penn State made a huge comeback in the end to go up 24-20, but Indiana has the last laugh with the big drive at the end. I went ahead and put satisfied here with Indiana because I think for Indiana fans, if there was not kind of the moment that Fernando Mendoza had, I think this would have been a little bit questionable, right? Ohio State had just beaten Penn State by more points, kind of handily, not maybe not handily because they were only up by 3 at halftime, but I still don't think many people thought Penn State was going to win that game. You were down by 4 points in this game at one point, needing a drive to win the game. The sack happened to Fernando Mendoza, and you're like, holy crap, what's going on here? We might lose this football game. I was ready to do an emergency podcast and everything, which I did do an emergency podcast, but it was just watching the end of the game. But there was definitely a big possibility that Indiana was going to lose that game. Now, I would not say it's elite because this is still a team that is not, they still did almost lose to a team that has not beaten a Power 4 opponent all season, but Penn State is a team with a lot of talent, and so I'm not going to treat Indiana like I did Michigan last week. Also, Michigan was at home, and kind of put them down at the concerning category. I'm going to say satisfying for Indiana. I'm going to say that's good. This is what you needed to do to survive in advance. Might have been nice to win this one by a little bit more points, but you know what? It's going to be okay. They'll be just fine. Indiana survives. They advance. Fernando Mendoza has a moment that a lot of people are deeming as Heisman moment, and so you do have some good stuff coming out of this game. So I put them in the satisfied category. For Penn State, I'm going to put them in the questionable category for this one, as Penn State just never really was able to put it all together, right? They were doing pretty well on offense at the beginning with a 9-play, 18-yard drive, but then they stall out, and then a 3 and out, and then they get the touchdown drive, and then another 3 and out with a fumble. Excuse me, after that. And so with Penn State, if you just had a functional first half, I think this is a game you definitely could have won, but you didn't really see that from Penn State. So overall in this one, Indiana gets the win. Actually, Penn State has more yards, 336 yards over Indiana. They have more passing yards in the game, more rushing yards, but Indiana played better situational football, being able to get down the field, get into the red zone, and ultimately they were the team with more tackles for loss. But Penn State definitely did a good job of getting pressure on Fernando Mendoza, and for Indiana, this is definitely a situation where you want to see that offensive line healthy again as quickly as possible. So we're going to have satisfied for Indiana and questionable for Penn State. All right, Ohio State at Purdue. Ohio State, I'm going to put Ohio State in the elite category here. Nearly 500 total yards of offense, over 300 rushing or 300 passing yards, over 170 rushing yards. They did have a large amount of penalties in this game for them, 6 penalties in this one for Ohio State, which was kind of strange. Davison Igbinosun got his normal holding penalty and stuff like that, but when you look at sack adjusted rushing yards, Ohio State was nearly 200 with 189 sack adjusted rushing yards, and they just completely dominated the time of possession in this one. Over 40 minutes of time of possession, and although they didn't get a sack, they did have 3 tackles for loss, but Purdue was able to get some pressure on Julian Sain with 2 sacks of their own. So Ohio State with a little bit of the offensive line stuff that Indiana was working with, but overall elite performance by Ohio State, being able to control the ball, 29 first downs in this one, 9 of 13 on third down. Overall, they were just very efficient. They were down 3-0 at one point in this game, but they immediately responded with a 24-0 run there in the second quarter, and you recognize it was all over. And also, Ohio State did have a number of injuries and players that were out in this game, and for them to continue to go out and play really well did not cover the spread this time, but still to go out, play really well, and nearly cover the spread, even with all those injuries. It's a good job by Ohio State. They're going to be in the elite category. For Purdue, we're going to put them in the concerning category because we're concerned Purdue's not going to win another Big Ten game this season. And honestly, even if they have a game where they look okay, they're probably going to still be there because Purdue's probably not going to win a Big Ten game the rest of the season. So you could have put them in the awful category, but like I said, they were able to do a few things to Ohio State. They were able to get some sacks on Julian Sayin. They picked Julian Sayin off in this game. So, I mean, even though Ohio State scored on all drives but two in this one, they were still able to stop them with an interception in one, make them punt on the very first drive, and make them settle for field goals a couple times there at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. So, got to give Purdue a little bit of credit there. We're going to put them in the concerning category instead of the just straight up awful category where some teams do reside. All right, Northwestern at USC. USC, good win for them as they were able to get this one 38-17. Gonna go ahead and put USC in the satisfied category here as they did let Northwestern stick with them in the first half. If they had kind of pulled away, Northwestern just scored a little bit later on, probably would have put them in the elite category, but USC did let them kind of stick with them in the first half a little bit. So overall, I think that I have to put them in that category. The score was 21-14, but there was an opportunity that Northwestern had there to make it 21-14 for them with a pick six by one of the defensive linemen, but Jada Maava made a really good play to knock the ball out at the goal line, and it went out of the end zone for a touchback for USC ball. So definitely want to give credit to USC here. I do think that I can't put them in the elite category because it was close in the first half. They did respond after that with a 3-play, 80-yard drive to score a touchdown before the halftime, and then Northwestern really wasn't able to do anything after that. So satisfied category for USC. You survive, you move on. But Northwestern, not great. They stuck with them in the first half. Their first two drives, they scored alongside USC. Could have had the lead going 21-14. But obviously didn't work out because of a good play by Jada Maava. And then the second half, they just completely collapsed. So for Northwestern, I'm going to put them in the concerning category. You can't just completely collapse like that in the second half and expect to have any kind of big positives to take. Obviously there's going to be positives out of these games that the coaches take, but you can't have these like huge positives coming out like, yeah, we stuck with them for a half. Like Northwestern has higher standards than that. Whether they should or they shouldn't, they do have higher standards than that. I think they personally should, but that's the way this one played out. So we're going to go with the concerning category for Northwestern. We'll see if they can put it all together against Michigan, as that will be a big game for them to try and do that. Okay, let's move on to Washington at Wisconsin. Wisconsin wins this one 13-10. Wisconsin with a big victory on their home field. Luke Fickell gets the vote of confidence. He goes out and his punter is his leading passer, Sean Martin, I believe was his name. But yeah, you saw multiple quarterbacks: Danny O'Neal, Hunter Simmons, Carter Smith, all of them in this one. Carter Smith ended up being the one that got the majority of the work, 3 for 12 for 8 yards passing in this one, but really it was the defense and the running game that was able to produce for them. Carter Smith had 15 carries for 47 yards, and that's kind of what you needed the most out of your quarterback, who was able to just kind of run around and do enough to be able to score. So only 48 passing yards in this one for Wisconsin overall, but 157 rushing yards. Good strong defense in bad weather conditions. And Washington, the whole Devon Williams dropping back, not liking what he sees and run for it, was working well at times, but eventually Wisconsin caught on, and there just wasn't anything that Devon Williams and this Washington offense could do. And also Denzel Boston, his injury, he was kind of in and out of the game a little bit. Hopefully he's okay, but we'll see what goes on there. Disappointing for Washington, they're going to be in the awful category, and for Wisconsin, they're going to be in the satisfied category. I think they're probably, their fans are probably feeling better than satisfied with a win finally, especially a ranked win, but definitely can't put them in the elite category because they just couldn't throw the ball, which is, I guess, it's understandable in some of the weather conditions, but still, you know, good win here for Wisconsin. That's what you want to see. We'll see if they can continue to build on it and maybe get a win in the weeks to come. All right, moving on here, we're going to get to who do I have next? Oregon and Iowa. That's right. Oregon and Iowa, big stuff here as Oregon gets the win 18-16 over Iowa. Oregon, I'm putting them in the elite category because they did go out there and they won this game in a manner that Iowa should have been winning this game. They ran for over 200 yards overall in this one. I don't know why it's doing the fourth quarter there. Reading my stats here. 261 yards overall, 112 passing yards. Iowa had more passing yards than Oregon in this game, but Oregon did what they were supposed to do. They did not allow the big special teams plays, and they did not allow a pick six or an interception that put Iowa in great field position in order for them to be able to score. They did have they did have a field goal off a turnover in this one, but still they were not able to get a pick six or anything, and that was huge for Oregon to not allow that to happen, as they were able to dominate with not dominate, but do really well with their offensive line. I don't want to make it sound like Iowa's defensive line was, not able to do anything, because they were, but Oregon just ran behind that offensive line. They have 3 or 4 guys with fresh legs. I guess if you want to count Dante Moore, he's the 4th guy with fresh legs running the ball around out there. And it just really, really adds to this team when you can have 4 different guys all rush for 45 yards or more in one game. And so really impressed with Oregon in this one. Really impressed with Will Stein and his ability as an offensive coordinator to kind of adapt. For Iowa, it's disappointing, right? You knew going into this game you were probably, you got a field goal from Drew Stevens, and a long field goal, and that trying to figure out exactly how long it was. Let me double check. It was 58-yard. So yeah, a long field goal by Drew Stevens in this one, but ultimately you didn't get the big punt return or kick return that you needed. You didn't get the pick six that you needed, in my opinion. Iowa had to have one of those two to have a chance to win this game, and they did have a chance. So that that was probably wrong, but Iowa needed those to win the game, and unfortunately they didn't get either one of those for them, and so they weren't able to win this one. But Oregon does survive and advance, and they should be thought of as one of the best teams in college football and a championship contender after this one. Obviously, Oregon still has tough games with Washington and USC on the schedule, but they need to be thought of more highly than they are, in my opinion, after this game. All right, our next one, we're going to go to Maryland and Rutgers, and then we'll finish off with Nebraska and UCLA. All right. Maryland and Rutgers. I'm going to put Rutgers in the satisfied category. I'm not going to put them in the elite category. I did think that Rutgers did some better stuff on defense, holding Maryland to only 98 passing yards total in this one. Malik Washington did not have his best day, 15 of 28 for 98 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So good stuff here by Rutgers to be able to do that. But it was home for them, and as we know, Maryland does struggle on the road this season. If anybody was elite, though, it was Antoine Raymond. 41 carries, 240 yards, 1 touchdown rush on the day for Antoine Raymond. You had Ian Strong. He had 3 touchdown catches in this one. You saw the Rutgers offense come alive. They were able to score on 4 of their 6 red zone possessions. Still a little bit of red zone issues, but they were just moving the ball so well. This Maryland defense was non-existent, and it's why I have this Maryland team as awful right now. I mean, this was a defense that you could rely on, and it looks like if Maryland doesn't get it together, Mike Locksley's going to lose his job, and you're going to have a whole lot of former freshmen at Maryland going in the transfer portal and probably finding a really, really good place for them to go out there, because Sydney Stewart, Zahir Mathis, Malik Washington have shown that they are really good players and really good young players. Malik Washington didn't have a great game this time, like I said, but he has still shown an ability to do some really good things. He had 164 rushing yards in this one, so I shouldn't say he didn't have a good game. He didn't have a good game passing the ball. He had 8 carries for 164 yards rushing and 1 touchdown. And I think that's the biggest thing. You can't give up over 300 yards on the ground to a team and be considered elite, in my opinion. So sorry, Rutgers. I liked some of the things you did, and you looked improved, only holding Maryland to less than 100 yards passing. But you can't go out there and then let them get over 300 yards rushing. It doesn't work. So Rutgers, I have satisfied. Maryland, I have in the awful category in this one. Nebraska, I have them in the satisfied category as they beat UCLA 28-21. UCLA, I have in the questionable category. I did think UCLA had some really good fight in this one, but man, what an impressive win here by Nebraska. And TJ Lateef comes in 13 of 15 passing the ball, 205 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Emmett Johnson had 28 carries for 129 yards, rushing 1 touchdown carry. Corey Barney looked really good. He only had 19 yards, but he did have a touchdown. Emmett Johnson had 3 receptions for 103 yards and 2 touchdown catches. Emmett Johnson was just the star of the show for Nebraska in this one. 364 total yards for, well, it's going to be less than that. I'm watching right now, and they're kneeling the ball, so it's going to be like 360 after they do some kneel downs and stuff. But overall, Nebraska much better with the sacks and the total defensive, tackles for loss, things like that. They did not give up a single sack in this game to UCLA, which was also impressive, and it's good to see. It's good to see for Nebraska. I would have put Nebraska in the elite category if I had seen some better pass defense out of them. So allowing 191 yards passing is not terrible, but they did allow 2 touchdown passes and no interceptions to Nico Iamaleava. Would have liked to see a little bit better, and then Nico did get 15 carries for 86 yards in this one. So questionable for UCLA, satisfied with Nebraska, teetering on the elite category there, but I'll stick with the satisfied. So what did you think? Let me know there. We have the updated conference winner odds, and as normal, Ohio State really high up there at -155 on FanDuel. Indiana +140. Michigan is the next high, or I apologize, Oregon is next highest at +2,500, and then Michigan is actually right there at +3,000, as they could possibly beat Ohio State and then make it into the Big Ten championship game there. So they have a little bit of higher odds as well. And then you look at the college football playoff odds. Really, the only teams with odds left are Michigan and USC after Washington goes down, Iowa goes down. So really, if you're hoping for a 4th team to get into the college football playoffs, Oregon looks more and more likely with their win. But USC is going to have to take down Oregon if they want to make it into the playoffs, and so you're going to have some stuff there. So Oregon did increase their odds on FanDuel to -300. USC is next highest at +410, and then Michigan right there, looking like they could possibly get there, +680. We'll see how it plays out. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you being here. Have a good one.